3, 2, 1.
How about we do it again?
6, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I fallen.
Okay, let's try one more
I
time.
definitely.
Ready?
I can move you. Making review. Making review.
Say 6,
6,
5,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of Rank and Review. I'm your host and random Canadian, Larry Parsons. This episode we are looking at sharks. Me and my very dear friend Charlene Roche are going to look at 6 movies that feature shark-eating people, or sharks eating people, or people running from sharks. It's just generally terrifying. Sharks is a very personal subject to me. I've always been fascinated and horrified by sharks, so I've been looking forward to this episode. As usual, I want to warn everybody that there will be spoilers for the 6 movies discussed, and very possibly naughty language. I'd like to ask you guys to check us out on Facebook if you haven't already and like the page. And thank you again so much for listening to Rank and Review. Alright, we're rolling. I would very much like to welcome my dear friend Charlene Roche to this episode of Rank and Review.
Hello.
Which I have been very much looking forward to.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be talking about sharks today.
Yeah.
Which is a very common, very rational fear in most people, but that Charlene and I sort of share to a rather substantial degree.
Absolutely. Many viewings of Shark Week
Shark
over
Week
the years.
aficionados.
Many, searching out of shark films and documentaries to watch to terrify ourselves. Yes.
Many nightmares. I remember being a child and having dreams of waking up and my mattresses floating in the middle of the ocean and getting slowly more and more saturated with water.
Yeah.
I didn't even see sharks in the dream. I just felt
But you
them.
knew. You knew they were there.
They were
I used to have ones with, for some reason, the bathroom, like when you have to go to the bathroom at night, except I have to walk planks to the toilet. And like sharks on either side. Have totally had those dreams where the mouth opens up and then you wake up.
Lovely.
Which is great because I actually wouldn't want to wake up after, so...
I like that we live in like the most landlocked location you practically
Absolutely.
can on the globe,
Yeah.
and yet we are fascinated and horrified with sharks. It's true though. I will go walking in, the forest and not worry about bears.
Yep.
Not think too much about, mountain lions or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
big cats.
Doesn't bother
Yeah.
me particularly. But if I put my toe in the ocean, I'm always thinking about sharks.
The thought's right there. Yeah, yeah. And it extends to any body of water. Lakes, swimming pools. I have to have a moment where I talk to myself and go, no, you're being silly.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. It's fine. Yeah.
I don't like swimming in swimming pools by myself.
No, I don't particularly enjoy it. And that is care of James Bond.
Yeah.
And the doors that opened up underwater and had
Absolutely.
sharks come out. Yeah.
No, there has
Just
to be
ruined
other
it.
people in the pool, then I'm safe.
Yeah, exactly. It'll never get me. It'll get them first. That's much better.
It's a fear that, as irrational as we may have it, I think is a fairly common one because nobody likes the idea of being eaten.
Yeah.
No one likes the idea of being something's dinner. And in the ocean, the current can kill you. The water itself can kill you.
Yeah.
Let alone
Yeah.
this thing that's, the size of a bus with teeth.
Yeah, and many other fish and creatures in the ocean can kill you too before you even get to sharks. But yeah, there is absolutely something fearsome about a set of jaws. I mean, it's not like that animal has anything else to work with. They don't have limbs. They don't have anything else to, So they're going to come at you with that.
They say that sharks get a bad rap in movies.
Could have had what?
That sharks get a bad rap in movies, that they get portrayed very negatively
Yeah.
as monsters, and that definitely makes them scarier. But I don't know. I mean, of course you're going to use these things. You're going to exploit these creatures for scares. There's
Well,
that's just going to happen.
Yeah.
I realize that millions of sharks are killed in fishing nets and butchered for their fins.
And it is
and
sad
I realize
and it is
that
wrong.
that sucks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm still not comfortable swimming in the ocean, and that is probably because I saw Jaws at too young an age.
Yep.
And it
Absolutely,
is probably
me too.
because of Shark Week. As much as that's edutainment, it's a horror show for me. It's almost like Halloween week for me. It's like,
It is. It is. It's an absolute horror show. And I mean, you're right. I mean, they do provide, and I find as Shark Week has gone on that it started out more educational. And these days it really is about, 9 out of 10 times they want to scare you, or, the best thing you can find is real shark attack footage.
Well, and it spills
like
over into
that's-
other networks. Just coincidentally, their program all of a sudden becomes more shark-oriented. And
Yeah.
then you get really bizarre stuff.
Yeah, so clearly a lot of people share the same fascination
Well, happily, we're not going to be reviewing any of the sci-fi network shark movies, such as Mega Shark versus Hella Octopus or whatever.
Sharknado.
Two-headed Shark Attack, Sharknado. We're
Yeah.
not going there this week.
Yeah.
The movies we're going to look at is we have Shark Night from the director of Final Destination, Shark Night, which is a bunch of sharks in a saltwater lake.
Yes.
So that should be interesting. We have an Australian film called The Reef, one of two that claim to be based on a true story
Yeah.
about a group of shipwreck survivors forced to make some terrible decisions.
Yes. Yeah.
We have the Halle Berry and Olivier Martinez. Olivier Martinez. Two very beautiful people swimming with sharks in dark tide.
Yeah.
We have our other based on a true story, and maybe in quotation marks here, but Open Water. I've often thought of that movie as sort of the filmed equivalent of my worst nightmare.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Another Australian film called Bait, maybe taking a slightly less serious look at sharks.
Just a little bit.
And what
Just a
shark
little
list
bit.
would be complete without Steven Spielberg's classic Jaws?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
A must.
I've got a good feeling about this episode in that, well, we're both sort of shark enthusiasts / terrified, phobic. But I think there's a chance of us going 6 for 6 this episode.
Yeah,
I don't know.
we'll
I
have
just
to
feel
see.
it. I don't know. It's only happened once before so far, but I don't know. I don't want to put too much
Pressure's
pressure on.
We shall see.
But you ready to get started?
Absolutely.
Somebody do something! It's insane! This is a lake!
Saltwater lake. I don't know how the hell they got in here. Maybe someone put them there.
What is this, some kind of sick game?
Okay. Shark Night 3D, although I must confess I never did get to see this movie in 3D. I only saw it on 2D.
Were we really missing out?
I don't know. There's some of the shots might have got a bigger laugh response in the 3D.
You can see the moments that are built for 3D, for sure.
But this is a fairly straightforward, appallingly simple in a lot of ways, actually. A bunch of college-age kids go out for a fun vacation on an island in the midst of a saltwater lake.
Yeah, in the Louisiana Gulf.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, someone's putting sharks in the water. And it doesn't work out well for them.
No.
Significant members of the cast include Sarah Paxton, who actually is a Jerry Award-winning actress for her very difficult work in the remake of Last House on the Left. I believe she's also like a Disney teen tweener when she was younger. I think she's in the Aquamarine movies and stuff.
Yeah,
like
she
this.
has been working since she was a kid. I know that much.
But she also seems to like horror movies. She does a really good job in this Ty West movie, The Innkeepers, sort of playing a dorky ghost hunter.
Oh, really?
And she seems to like horror movies. She seems to be doing a lot of them. And she's found herself caught into this Shark Night movie.
Well, she definitely fits that typical blonde ingenue lead sort of mold.
Saskatchewan's own Dustin Milligan.
Jeez, I
leads
didn't
the
know
cast.
that.
That is correct. He is our handsome lead.
Oh, wow.
Who is the romantically pursuing Sarah Paxton.
Yes.
Who else knows? Joel David Moore,
Okay.
who was in Hatchet and also Avatar. The obscure James Cameron science fiction picture Avatar. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember the name of the actor who played the police. Donald Logue. Donald Logue. He plays the police officer.
Red.
Yeah, Red.
The sheriff.
So, yeah, what did you think of Shark Night, Charlene?
Shark Night, I'm not a huge fan of, and it's because in general, when it comes to shark movies, if I really want to be terrified, then I need to get it as closely to what that experience would actually be in real life. And I mean, here we're working with CGI sharks, right? So right away, that's fun. You can make them look more ferocious. They can do more things. I definitely see why sharks are difficult to work with.
Absolutely.
In real life. So I definitely see why people use CGI, but it takes me out of the moment because immediately I know that I'm looking at something that's fake, right?
The CGI is up and down in this movie. I do think we see worse CGI in these 6 movies than is in Shark Night. But the sharks are monsters, definitely, in this movie. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's hard for me not to think of them as monsters anyway, because I'm so terrified of being eaten by one of them. But I do recognize that they are animals, and they do not live just to eat people. And once they get a taste of human blood, they won't, sacrifice their own bodies to get more of it, This is a conceit purely of the movie. But because of my soft spot for shark movies, I can see myself revisiting Shark Night again.
Really?
As a guilty pleasure. In the same way I can watch, Deep Blue Sea, which didn't make this list, but is another shark movie, which you cannot look yourself in the mirror afterwards and say that was a good movie. You just can't.
But it's fun.
You could say it was entertaining. You can say a lot of things about it.
And Samuel Jackson. Yeah, so good. But yeah.
It's sort of like, maybe I'm not proud of myself for it, but at the end of the day, I kind of got a guilty pleasure response out of Shark Night. That said, I recognize that it is completely stupid.
That's okay, as long as you can make
So I'm going to drop
distinction.
that caveat. Right? Yeah. You do have to have your brain set on stupid, but I think if you do, you can probably spend the worst 90 minutes of your life.
Well, one of the things I really liked about the movie was out of the 6 we have here, and really out of lots of shark movies, this one had the most variety of sharks. So you see hammerheads, which are, you see a lot in shark documentaries, but not necessarily in movies. Cookie cutter shark, I mean, you have to really be a shark person to even have heard of the cookie cutter shark, right? What are the other ones in here? Sand tiger sharks, or those are known as ragged tooth sometimes. Tiger sharks, of course, great whites, bull sharks.
Mako? I can't even remember.
I feel like that there was a mako in there.
A rich variety of sharks.
Yeah, which is interesting. I really have to give them kudos for that.
And they are
for not just going for the great white and just making it a lake full of great whites.
On a script level, they're open about appealing to the Shark Week, cast or fans.
Yeah.
One of the villains actually talks about. Basically, we find out that the people who are putting the sharks in the lake are actually attaching cameras to the shark to get shark attack footage, because they imagine this being a really good thing to sell to Shark Week. Again, it's a pretty stupid premise when you say it out loud, right?
Yeah, because when does Shark Week, producers start to get, suspicious? When they bring them their second and third shark attack videos,
But still, the footage is amazing.
It doesn't matter. It's all about the footage. Yeah. This one has a lot of payoffs in terms of, if you're really watching the movie for shark attacks, this one has about 8 and about 7 deaths. So there's, in that 90 minutes, they're really packing in a lot of shark attacks. And I mean, if you're watching a shark film, that's what you're there for largely, right? Is to...
And the situation, I guess, I can't think of anything loudly stupid that the kids do. It's not one of those things where, let's split up so they don't get us so bad, I get them, trusting the sheriff, and I get them, splitting up the way that they do because of the seriousness of the injury one of them has suffered,
Yeah.
It's not just, they're not completely idiotic, which also I think helps.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, it's circumstantial. And a lot of it is stemmed from trying to help their friend get to the hospital and be treated. Yeah.
David R. Ellis is the director. He recently passed away.
Yeah.
We were talking about this. He
Yes.
did a couple of the Final Fantasy movies, and he did Snakes on a Motherfucking Plane.
I haven't seen any of those.
You haven't seen any? Well, of course, yes. Charlene's not a particularly big horror movie fan.
Yeah. Well, I have to say I am fascinated by them.
You like
but I
movie
can't.
synopsises?
Yes, that's right. Like I can't actually watch them. They kind of scare the shit out of me. But but I hear lots of people talking about them, and I want to know what happened, like paranormal activity and that sort of thing. And so I do. I go online. I go to Wikipedia, and I read the plot summaries.
And that's enough
so
to
I
scare
know
you?
it is. Sometimes it is, yeah. And then sometimes, if I'm feeling particularly brave, I might go to YouTube and watch a few clips here and there until I can't take it, and then that's about it.
The idea of the movie will scare you. That's awesome.
Sometimes, yes.
And yet I
Yes.
got you to watch 6 shark movies. So
You did. Well, I mean, everyone has their exceptions to the rules, and shark movies are definitely one of them, so.
So sooner or later I'll come up with another 6, don't you worry.
Yeah. I have a feeling I'll be back, yes.
This is, David R. Ellis, going back to the director, this is
Yeah.
his last film. And I think, in a way, it's almost a hybrid shark/slasher movie. Because, like you say, the body count is very rich, and the cast is what you would typically find in a slasher movie.
Yeah.
Instead of them being stalked in their sorority at some panty party, they're in their swimsuits and there's sharks jumping out of the water
Yeah, that's
and
right.
eating them.
He just wanted to go wakeboarding. Come
Exactly.
on. Yeah.
And the movie doesn't make any bones about it. I think that they tried to tame it down a little bit to achieve a softer rating, but the movie is pretty brutal.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know that every movie is required to have nudity, but it seemed like that movie wanted to have nudity so much they might as well have just done it,
That's so true. Yeah.
But maybe that's just my male perspective speaking here.
No, it goes hand in hand. I mean, if you're talking about that classic slasher flicks with the group of young college-age friends and, what do we need? Drugs, sex, and
I'm
death.
willing to bet there's a draft of this script circulating somewhere. There was some skinny dipping involved.
Oh, yeah.
But then they thought, no, we're going to put this in 3D and we're going to bring the teenagers out for this one.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
So no nudity.
I get it.
We'll just keep it at the bikinis. Yeah.
For now. Is there anything else you want to say about Shark Night?
Not particularly. It wasn't one of the strongest ones for me. But again, kudos again to them for using a wide variety of sharks and having a lot of attacks. It was, good fun.
Yeah, I will just reiterate that I had some fun with this movie. It's a guilty pleasure. Your brain will not thank you for it. You might have to go read something afterwards as an apology
An
to your
antidote.
brain. But I don't think it outright sucks. It's a guilty pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. There's worse out there.
What? Something's following us.
Izzy, you're freaking me out.
Get back! Oh, it's a shark.
How big?
It's big. Take some deep breaths with me.
Swim! Somebody help us! Take me! Take me!
Back in Australia, right? Back in Australia. We're gonna
Especially when it comes to sharks.
Exactly. We're going to look at the first of two movies from Australia now. This is The Reef. It is written, produced, and directed by Andrew Traucki. Traucki? Traucki? Anyway, I think it's a pretty suspenseful piece of work. It's inspired by true events. Chuck is going to share some of the details of which to you in just a moment. But it definitely takes a lot of liberties. Charlene, what did you think of The Reef?
I really enjoyed / was terrified
Yes.
of The Reef. It is it's your worst nightmare, and very plausible, right? You're out at sea, something happens to the boat, it capsizes, and then what do you do next, right? Do you stay with the boat or do you swim? And there are, more than one group of people who have had to make that decision in their lives, and I hope I'm never part of that of that group. Yeah. And so this movie does a really good job of I thought first person shark attacks. Lots of times you're pulled back and you're seeing it as a third person, but these shark attacks really felt like you were the one who was being attacked.
You're in the water.
Yeah, so consequently there is not a lot of you don't see a lot of the shark necessarily. It's glimpses here and there, but that's what it would be. It's a lot of water and air and things being kicked up, but that's what I imagine in my nightmares. Yeah. What it would actually be.
Real shark footage about 99.9% of the time. Yeah. I'm sure they augmented it to make it look bigger than it was and to make it look closer to them than it was.
Yeah.
But that's real shark footage, and that makes it terrifying.
Real great white shark footage.
And the premise is very plausible.
Yeah.
They are delivering a small yacht from one point to another in Australia, and doing a little bit of sightseeing, and the boat flips over and is drifting out to the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
And if the movie didn't already have the hook for me of people are getting eaten by sharks, I think that the real hook, like you say, is that sort of survival choice that it comes down to. Do you make the decision to stay with the boat that's likely going to sink and that is slowly drifting further out to sea? Or do you swim over the reef to where you believe there are some islands? Hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
That whole quandary is a really difficult one, and I know with my phobia I would be probably tempted to stay on with the boat for as long as possible, which would probably be the wrong decision.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think I would have a hard time leaving the only thing that looks like safety for a what if on the horizon that I can't even see, that I'm just hoping is there. Yeah. Yes, and knowing what's in the water and how long you have to be in there, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the movie really works, and I think there is a lot of really great suspense to it right away. Like, the second that boat flips, I feel like the sharks are coming for them, but this isn't that. The shark doesn't show up right away. No. And when it does show up, it doesn't start attacking right away.
No.
They are sort of stalked.
Which is, again, closer to sort of natural shark behavior, right? That they go, they check it out, they circle you, there's some curiosity, there is some stalking or checking you out before they're going to go in for an attack, right?
Yeah. And then they psych you out a couple times with that tuna fish early in the movie.
Yes.
If you remember that made me jump.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I jump at all of it.
So could you share with the rest of the kids a little bit of the actual story? I know we just talked about it. But.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so this movie is loosely based on a true event that happened in 1983 to three people who were in their 20s, and they were on a prawn trawler boat when they had some trouble and ended up in the water. And so it was a tiger shark in that case that was stalking them. And one of the guys yelled out, "The bastard has my leg," and then told his two friends to swim away as he tried to lure the shark away from the other man and woman. So one of the guys took one for the team.
As best he could.
Yeah, because he was already bitten, I guess. So he figured, but I have to applaud him for even having access to his brain to make some sort of decision in a moment of
praised screaming is
Yes.
very impressive to me.
Exactly. And then to have the wherewithal to try and get the shark away. So of course he perished, and then and it was just down to this gentleman, Mr. Boundy, and a gal, and the gal was bitten, and she was taken away and died, and it was him left. And this was 5 hours before he was rescued, and they were in that water for 36 hours. And he was attacked as well, but he was able to fend off the shark and swim for a reef while he waited for a rescue.
You'd think it would be full by that point, too.
I know.
Greedy.
These damn sharks. But as Shark Week shows you, they will gorge themselves, like when they have those big whales that they gorge themselves on. They'll keep going and going and going.
Yeah. Full as takes. Yeah, I think basically they change it. There's 4 people in this story, and it's a great white.
Yeah.
So the size of the adversary is much more... I mean, I wouldn't want to tangle with a tiger shark either, frankly, but...
No, but there's something particularly terrifying about the great white shark. And I mean, obviously, Jaws helped with that. But I think in general, there is just something about that beast that makes it one of the most terrifying sharks. Even though if you look on a lot of the shark lists, they'll say the bull shark is number 1. Yeah. In terms of like attacks and actual danger to humans. Yeah, it's number 1 and the great white's number 2.
Fresh water, and it's just generally a grumpy critter to begin with.
Yeah, it is.
Sort of sounds like a shark badger. Just a grumpy guy swimming around where he shouldn't, but don't fuck with it.
Yeah. But yeah, the great white, I mean, it's just an image of...
Going back to the crux of the decision as to stay with the boat or swim away, it kind of reminds me of sort of the classic survival scenarios we've encountered. There's a really great movie called Touching the Void about mountain climbers.
Yes, that's fantastic.
Where there's the decision of whether or not to cut the rope. The decision whether if you're lost in the wilderness, to stay and wait for rescue or to try and move can be the difference between life and death. Yeah. But you have to make that decision.
You do. And you don't know which one is right, because in different stories, there's different results, right?
As scary and as well done as those shark attacks are, though, I really do think it's that I keep going back to. When I think of the Reef, that's the moment that I think of. It's the moment when they set out on the journey.
Yeah.
And he saws in half this flimsy-looking, like, foam life preserver so that everybody can have a little piece. And then they start swimming towards what looks like nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it's a horrible situation to be in, and, like, on a premise level, this movie is very strong. The acting is very strong as well. And when it comes to events like you were talking about in real life, we see it coming with that first guy, because he does the stupid thing and swims away from the group.
Yeah.
And is reaching to grab this float when the shark gets him. But yes, his leg is gone, and he tells them to move on.
He does.
Because he's not going to be able to swim the rest of the way, clearly. It's well realized. So even though you see his death coming, it's still, you feel it, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would not want to be in that situation, and I do feel like I might have been the dude who stayed on the boat and was never seen or heard from again.
I know. Again, it would be... I'm not sure. I don't know if I could... Like, if I could see the island...
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Then maybe because I
or
knew
if
there
I knew
would...
for a fact that there was an island there and it wasn't guesswork, because there was a little bit of guesswork in their decision.
Well, and they're supposed to be between them and the island is 12 miles.
Of reef.
Yeah. Of swimming, of currents, of... You know, and
not
so...
to mention all the other things on the reef that they could cut themselves on or poison them or jellyfish or whatever.
Yeah.
But if a shark is swimming on the reef, it's there looking for food.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. Right?
Yeah, it's so true. And I think the tension in the movie is built too because they keep finding these little areas where they can get out of the water for a moment. You know, on top of a reef or an island that only fits 2 of them, and or something like this. But there's these momentary
breaks.
Yeah, where they get to feel a moment of safety before they
have to press on.
Yeah.
Because if you stay in one place for too long, yeah. The tide changes.
And what's the point of doing all that swimming for you just to stay on it? Yeah, and you're right. The tide's going to change too. So stay if you want, but circumstances are going to change regardless. You'll be back in the water.
It's scary stuff, and I really, really hope I'm never faced with that sort of decision.
Absolutely.
I think that once we do get to the end, we do have some sort of slow motion sharks coming out of the water, climbing on the rocks. Fairly familiar ground for the shark venture, but it completely works. And by that time we get to that point, I'm invested with the characters. So that part of my brain that tells me I've seen this before shuts up, and I enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Thumbs up on the Reef.
Yeah, thumbs up for the Reef.
My father once told me to be careful of the things you love most in the world. Because if you're not careful, that very thing can also destroy you.
The bank called. They're gonna take your boat.
I have a job offer. A lot of money.
What can I do for you?
I'm willing to offer you 100,000 euros to put me in the water with a great white shark, outside the cage.
I've spent 10 years. It's taken me that long to be able to get outside of the cage.
You're going to show us how it's done.
Take his offer.
Like it's that easy.
Why are you freaking out?
Because you told him he could do something that I wasn't even sure I could do.
Swimming with sharks, for me, that is the ultimate. It's putting your courage on the line, right?
Let's do it.
So I've been going on a crazy Halle Berry kick lately. I recently saw The Call. I recently saw this Cloud Atlas movie, and then just the other night, you and I rewatched. Well, for me, rewatched. For you, I guess it was your first.
It was, yeah,
first kick
time.
at it. Dark Tide, starring Halle Berry and Olivier Martinez. Yeah, we've sort of jokingly referred to this as the Shark Whisperer movie.
Yes.
Because Halle Berry plays this woman who does free dives with great white sharks. Which, as we've learned from Shark Week, there are people who do that. One crazy fellow in particular. And they used a lot of the lingo that we saw from that actual scientist in the movie. But I don't know. I guess I never really fully believed that Halle Berry was swimming with the great white shark.
No.
It's set in Cape Town, South Africa, which is near and dear to my heart because I've actually been there.
Yes. And actually been on a boat looking at great white sharks.
That is
oh my
true.
God.
Just little ones, but they were good enough. You know,
Still,
2 actual great white sharks, so take it. Yikes. And I kept my lunch too. Not everybody on the boat kept their lunch. There was a lot of people getting sick because of the up and down.
Yeah, well done. You have some sea legs to you.
Yes. So the movie is beautiful. It is populated by beautiful people, and it is shot in a beautiful place.
Yeah, and the director is known for that, right?
Yeah,
for shooting underwater.
He
and
loves underwater. Yeah, John Stockwell, I want to say before.
Yep.
That is right.
Yep.
Yeah, Kevin Stiller and I recently reviewed one of his movies called Turistas. I think that of all his movies spends the least time underwater.
Interesting. Him trying to break above the surface.
I personally found quite a lot of familiarity to the basic story structure of a bad event happens, a person's hopes are crushed, a series of circumstances forces this person to confront their old fears, and they end up triumphant. Sounds familiar, right?
Absolutely.
It's almost like every sports movie ever made or something like this, but in a shark context. But to my mind, it was a bit of cool shark stuff, a lot of blah, 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 and then a little cool shark stuff, and then credits.
Yeah. It's true. They were really
that?
relying on like Olivier and Halle Berry, I think, to carry the movie in between.
Yeah.
And
they don't.
They just no, they don't. They didn't. It's the best part are the shark attacks, which yes, like you said, bookend, the film. And just to talk about the shark attacks for a second, they use a lot of actual great white shark footage, which again is always a plus in my books.
Check.
And and then with his forte being in underwater photography or filming, it is beautiful. They have a small amount of CGI when it comes down to the actual attack, but you can see that they made it as small as possible to make it as realistic as possible.
They didn't
and
fool
I
me,
did
but
absolutely
appreciated
jump.
They tried.
Yeah.
They didn't fool me, but they tried, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a good kick at it.
And I thought it was an interesting type of shark attack right at the beginning, in the sense that a lot of movies will go for maybe the out of nowhere shark attack, or they come and it's final. This shark comes in, checks things out, circles, or you know what I mean? It's kind of, there are stages to this attack before it goes in for the final kill. And that was good. Good for them. Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, and again, I won't speak for both of us, but I had a real hard time feeling sympathetic for Halle Berry's character. I mean, she did a lot of free dives with great white sharks, and she'd been doing it for a couple of years, and nothing had gone wrong. But then, guess what? Something went wrong, and someone got killed. Well, if you didn't know that was on the menu when you're swimming with the shark, I mean, and her reaction to it seems to be shitty to everybody who loves her. She spends a lot of this movie yelling at her crew and just sort of being generally difficult. And we're supposed to believe that she's dealing with it, and everybody else puts up with it because they love Halle Berry so much.
Except they don't tell us why we should love her.
Exactly. It's because she's beautiful, I guess. Pretty people shouldn't be so sad and angry.
Oh no, not the beautiful people. It's true though. It's a good point. Or somehow that love that everyone else has for her is supposed to spill over onto us or something, and it doesn't.
Don't push Stubbly Frenchman away because he's dreamy, and he loves you, Halle. And just continually through the movie, the choices she makes seem wrong for the character. And I'm not going to say that I don't think Halle Berry is a good actress, because I've seen her do really good work. And I've been watching Halle Berry movies a lot lately for whatever reason. But I don't think she's that great in this movie.
No.
In fact, I would actually push it to say she's a little bit indulgent in this movie. I don't know if it's because her boyfriend was along for the ride or what, but there's a lot of stuff, especially when she's talking to her crew, that honestly felt like it was improv'd. And
cyclical. Like, they kept having different versions of the same conversation. And so why is that of any more interest to me?
Oh, it's so natural and pithy and funny. And she's being over rude to them, but it's sort of in a playful, silly way. But it feels like it's padding the movie. I feel like the script only had about 62 minutes in it, and they had to stretch it to 90. And as a result, there's a lot of fat on the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. The premise of it really bothers me as well, because the whole premise is that, a year after this shark attack, that she's being encouraged to get back in the water and free swim, and not only her, but to bring two inexperienced people with her, which is a billionaire and his really sensitive son. And so that's ridiculous. To even think of the reality of being a shark whisperer, to get in the water with great whites, to swim with them. There's so much work there to be done. To think that putting a couple of dollar bills on the table will do the work for you.
We just want to do it, and money's no option. And the fact that she and Olivier are willing to do it sort of tells me, they're willing to risk people's lives for money.
Well,
it takes legitimacy away from them. And even though this billionaire character, who's just portrayed as an impossible prick, there's no point in the movie where he's anything but a dick. Even when he apologizes, he's a dick. You don't almost believe it.
There's no shade to him, right? He's just all one color.
But still, at the end of the day, when getting antagonized, she risks everybody's life to take him to where the biggest, most dangerous sharks would be. And encourages him to get in the water, yells at him when he doesn't get in the water. There's no consistency to her character, and that doesn't seem like survivor guilt or anything to me. That's just irrational.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't understand how that exists in the same story where, the person who was attacked was someone who had worked with her very closely, who knew these sharks, who'd been in that environment, who'd really invested their time, who'd done it properly, the people who really do this. It's an incredibly serious venture. And she throws it all out the window because she's mad, because someone pushed her buttons a little bit?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And going towards the end of the movie, and if this is the hero's journey, at the end, 2 more people have been killed. Pretty much directly because of her.
Yeah.
So when the light comes up in the morning and it looks like they're going to be rescued, and it cuts to her swimming with the sharks again, having conquered her fear, that makes no sense to me.
No.
And it's like, a year ago I got somebody killed, but then a year later I got 2 people killed, and I got over my fear and swam with
Now I
sharks again.
feel better.
What?
Oh, thank God for those experiences.
Let's back up a bit. No. Wait, no.
It's so true. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, no, the only redeeming parts of this movie for me are the quality of the shark attacks, the quality of the footage, the filming, and other than that.
There's a sloppiness to it, and it doesn't just go to the Halle Berry stuff. I talked about it while we watched it, and I'm sorry if I was being a naggy Nelly while we were watching the movie, but the last dive, which goes disastrously wrong, there's no sense of time to it at all.
Right.
Halle Berry is free diving, so presumably she has to surface for air, even if she's one of the best free divers in the world. Every, say, 6 to 10 minutes, she's got to pop her head out of the water.
Yeah.
The boat flips over. Well, first of all, a squall kicks up that is ridiculous. It's blowing like huge waves. Then the boat flips over, and then night falls.
And then all of a sudden.
And Halle Berry surfaces and like, what happened?
All these major,
as
things happening, and she's just cluing in.
As dumb as some of the stuff in Shark Night is, there's nothing as dumb as that.
That's true.
In Shark Night. And
That's
this movie
true.
takes itself very seriously.
Yeah, it does. And I was reading about, I think there was $25 million spent on this movie. They wanted it to do well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that her and Olivier, their pay had to be quite high as well. So, they were looking to do a high quality shark film, and they just...
Not today.
No.
Not today.
Missed the boat.
If you're hardcore into shark movies, this is another one. And it doesn't over-rely on CG.
No.
But if you were to check it out, I would say after the first 10 minutes, skip the next hour, and then watch the last 20.
Yeah. Make it a nice, tidy half hour.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about Dark Tide, or have we been suitably mean to this?
Oh, I think we covered it.
All right. I'm sorry, Hallie. We're still friends.
It's true.
Other people go on vacations and spend their days just laying around. We have a story we're going to be telling for the rest of our lives.
Daniel, where's the boat?
That's a good question.
As we were stuck in the middle of the ocean. Oh, God. Oh.
It's okay. It's okay. This can't be happening. Oh my God. Susan! Susan!
Oh God, something's rubbing against my foot. Are you alright? Stay strong. It's gonna be okay.
So as we're recording this, Charlene, it's January in Saskatchewan. It is freezing cold out here. But one of the reasons I don't live in a tropical paradise is for the story that is being depicted in open water. I've been told by numerous people who have gone snorkeling that it is beautiful, that they would live there if they could, that it is a life-changing experience, and I'm happy for them. But I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm just not a sea dude. Open water. This film is directed by Chris Kentis. He and his wife, Laura Lau, sort of produce and direct fairly low-budget movies. They've only done 2 so far, but I kind of like both of them. They did this, and they did a remake of a film called Silent House.
No, I didn't see that one.
I think this is much the stronger of the two, but it also preys upon, my worst nightmares, which is, the idea of being stranded in the middle of the open ocean.
Yeah, we talked about the reef, right? And making that terrible decision about getting off the boat.
Yeah.
There is no boat here.
No.
You are in it. This decision's been made for you.
Yeah.
You're in the water.
It's a cruel fate kind of movie. They're doing a scuba diving exploration and just having a great time. Beautiful crystal clear waters, sort of tropical paradise. And we are shown very clearly by just a fairly innocent misunderstanding on the boat how the count got screwed up. And everybody on board believed everybody was back out of the water. And they drive away, and this married couple surface. Heads pop out of the water, feeling great and happy and ready to get back on the boat. And the boat's not there. Yeah. And we stay with them for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
That's open water. I think that it's a real nail-biter. I remember seeing it in the theaters. It was in August, and it was ridiculously hot, but I came out of that theater feeling chilled. Like cold. It really, really unnerved me, which means I think that it's an effective horror movie.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of anticipation built up, tension built up between,
Oh, yeah, and I don't think enough good things can be said about Blanchett Ryan and Daniel Travis, the two leads of this movie. Basically, their 99% of the screen time is dedicated to these two.
Absolutely.
And it was shot on the open ocean on weekends for almost 2 years.
It's crazy, hey?
Up to and including being in the water with actual sharks.
Yeah. They said they'd look down sometimes and it's not blue, it's just gray.
Yeah.
That's totally unnerving. And I think another interesting thing is that Blanchard is terrified of sharks. I don't know. We sit here talking about this, and I don't know how she got in the water for 2.5 years.
Well, that's the thing.
And the funny thing is she kept making her co-star go first, so she didn't, so I guess if something happened, he had to take it.
Well, let's play what if. I like the idea of getting paid to act is appealing to me.
Sure.
I mean, granted, it's unlikely where I live that sort of thing happens, but if by some craziness I was offered a role in a movie, they were doing a big budget film version of the Indianapolis tragedy, and I would, get a featured role as a person in the water, surviving those several days in the water with sharks. Even if it was in a controlled environment in a tank, my raw nerves of it would am I actually able to do this?
Yeah.
And if I was being asked to float out in the open ocean, I mean, I'm sure the boat obviously was right there for them at all times, but to be in the ocean every weekend for as long as it takes to make the movie, basically, if either of the actors quit at a certain point, the whole movie gets unplugged, right?
Yeah.
So they saw it through to the end.
And working in open water is unpredictable.
Weather reliant.
You don't know what's going to swim up, what's going to happen, And the boat's close-ish. I mean, it needs to maintain some sort of distance if you don't want it in the shot, or you don't want the shadow of the boat, So, yeah, I agree. Kudos to them. I'm not sure I could do it either.
The camera is always just above or just below the water level. You're right in the water with them, so you sort of feel...
So it's like you're the third person floating along with them, okay?
It's I felt short of breath. I felt like a tightness in my body while I was watching the movie. I completely empathized with them. And they are a bit of a bickering couple. And in any other movie, this is the sort of horrible misadventure that they have to suffer through to bring each other closer together. Unfortunately, this is not that type of movie. It is based...
No, I mean, they do. They say people can experience amazing... bonding when they're in difficult situations, lifelong bonding, because they went through that together. Wow. Not so much
Assuming
lifelong.
you survive it.
Yeah.
Assuming you survive it.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. This one, like The Reef, it is. It's incredibly realistic in terms of that you can be there. The shark attacks are probably more along the lines of what you would actually experience. We've... over the years have watched and read many shark attack accounts, and some people say they feel like it was something pulling on their leg. They didn't really know that their leg was being bit off. They come out of nowhere. They come multiple times. I think that's it. They're unpredictable, and so that adds to this because you don't know what's going to happen next, and you don't know the severity to what's going to happen next. And and then you imagine yourself there, and it's terrifying.
And again, it's the survival situation, only it's a survival situation where the choices are taken from you.
Yeah.
Like, they're at the mercy of the current. Swimming or floating, it doesn't matter. Like, they're going to go where the ocean is stirring them to go, you know. A boat may come across them, but much more likely is that they won't. This movie is based on a true story in that there were two divers who got miscounted off of a boat, and though they sent out several search teams
for 3 days, they were missing. They didn't figure it out till 2 days after, and then they searched for them for the following 3 days. And those people were never found, and so I mean, we don't know, but I don't think it is out of the realm of possibility that they were attacked by sharks. I mean, lots of the stories of people who are shipwrecked, that's exactly what happens. Sharks come around at some point.
Sooner or later, they come to check out these new smells.
Yeah. And I think this one's terrifying as well, because when they have these small shark attacks along the way and they're trying to convince the other person it's going to be okay, we're going to be okay, it's going to be all right, and it's not. It's not, and it's just so heartbreaking to watch these people try and lift their spirits in a situation that you know is hopeless.
And it goes on for days. There's a sequence that happens at night, which is just so terrifying, because we can't really see anything. Like, there's some lightning flashes and a little bit of blips, and we hear them sort of crying and holding on to each other and splashing, and like, the helplessness of that. Like, it really does touch a primal nerve.
Yes.
And this is not a particularly graphic movie as far as its violence, but it's probably maybe the most quote-unquote disturbing movie of the group. We're free to talk spoilers in the podcast, so I'm going to go to it. We basically see the typical scenario where it gets right down to the edge, and they're right about to give up. That's when, you know, the helicopter shows up, or the boat typically comes to pull them out of the water. And in this case, we don't have that. We have the lead character taking control of the only decision that she has left, which is how she's going to die.
Ugh. It's so bleak. It's so bleak.
Brutal.
It's absolutely brutal. And it kind of reminds me, too, of those movies like Paranormal Activity or
it feels found
Blair
footage,
Witch,
or
it? Yeah, that kind of found footage, but also that the terror that you experience from that movie is created largely in your head. It's not that they're actually giving you a lot of gore or blood or things to react to. It's the situation itself is just stirs up your imagination.
One old horror movie trick that I've sort of noticed that this movie uses, and another more famously used in Carrie, where very early in the movie you're sort of surprised by a moment of fairly shocking graphic nudity. In Carrie, it's a slow pan through a locker room full of teenage girls changing after gym class. And I mean, it's not sexual particularly, but it's slow motion graphic, steamy shower. And in this movie, we see the blanket pulled off Blanchett, and she is stark naked under the blanket. And the context seems weird, like, why are we seeing that? But it's this horror movie trick of establishing early in the movie, before anything's happened, is there's nothing we're not going to show you.
Right.
So once, whether or not you're conscious of it, your brain is sort of set to that. They're not going to spare me any image. They're not going to but they actually do. They could be a lot more graphic. In that way, they sort of set you up to expect the worst, and your anticipation of it, you fill in the blanks in that dark night. You fill in the blanks what's going on under the surface of the water. And it's worse than anything they could have possibly caught on film.
Absolutely.
And happily, both of these actors survived. Unhappily, I haven't seen either of them do any. I don't remember seeing them in anything that big subsequent to this. And they're both really good and clearly very committed actors. So,
to dedicate 2.5 years of their lives, their weekends to this. And
it was kind of a minor, quote-unquote, Blair Witch project in that the amount of money it took to make the movie as opposed to the amount of money it ended up making.
I think it was about $150,000 to make, and has made Yeah.
A lot more than that?
Millions. Yeah. Did very well.
It's a short movie. It's something like 80 minutes or something like that. A helpful DVD case here. 81 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember thinking it was 2 hours when I saw it in the theater.
Because it just, sign of a good movie, right?
Like, it is scary.
Yeah.
If you're looking for like the sort of fun popcorn roller coaster ride, you go back to Jaws.
That's right.
This movie brings the scares, man.
It absolutely does.
Is there anything else you want to say about it?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one of the fun facts about this movie when I did some research on it. And Susan and Daniel, those are the main characters, of course. Their last names are revealed on their ID cards. Hers is Watkins, his is Kintner. In Jaws, the skinny dipping girl who serves as the shark's first victim is named Chrissy Watkins. And the second victim, the young boy who is killed on his inflatable raft, is named Alex Kintner. So nice sort of tip of the hat to Jaws there. So I enjoyed finding that.
And it is true, if you are making a shark movie, make no mistakes, you are following in the footsteps of Jaws.
You will be compared to it, whether you like it or not.
To pretend otherwise is to waste your time. But we'll talk about Jaws in just a little bit.
What happened? Where are all the people?
Can't get out that way.
Oh my God. What's that? Where is he, Josh?
Get everyone out of the water.
Out of the water, now! Please help me! Help me!
There's a 12-foot great white shark in here.
Oh, shit! Help us! You better keep still, okay? The more you scream, the more the shark's gonna come.
Why does it keep circling? It's curious. It's not sure what we are.
Hold on!
Baby, swim!
I can make it! I can make it!
Alright, so we have a change of location now, but we're going to continue with the reviews with another Australian feature called Bait. It has a fairly ridiculous concept. It is about a tsunami hitting the coast of Australia, in particular striking a grocery store, which is in the middle of a robbery, thus filling the store with water and with great white sharks. At least 3, I think we have figured out were in there. 3 great white sharks.
It's almost 3 disaster movies in one, almost.
It is as ridiculous as it sounds.
Tries to be, yeah.
And it doesn't really hide the fact that it's fairly outlandish, but I still found myself asking fairly hard questions of a fairly simple movie. I mean, it had sharks in it. Ooh. It had sharks in it, so I was there and I was entertained. But again, similar to Shark Night, I felt this is maybe going to have to be on the column of guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Where do you land on Bait?
Yeah, it was. Again, I didn't enjoy it as much as Open Water or The Reef, but it's fun. I mean, I think you know what you're getting into when you look at the cover, when you read the back. I mean, you know that this is going to be a little bit of a ridiculous shark movie, and you're there for the bad one-liners and for the CGI, as much money as they could put into that side of things, and the ridiculous situations that they find themselves in. I mean, you know that, I think, when you start watching it. So if you're expecting more from it, in a way, yeah, it was never going to be that. I mean, we were just talking that there are some fun shark attacks in there. As it should have, right? I mean, that's part of what's promising to deliver, that there's going to be some fun moments. And hopefully you'll jump
through with that. But I think you have to know what you're getting into when you step into this movie. Yeah. Now, as ridiculous as it is, I mean, they do play it fairly seriously, but it's clearly a B movie. And I would argue, actually, the first shark attack that we see in the movie, the sort of establishing shark attack, is bad enough that I imagine most people would have probably quit the movie. The CG right off the bat is not very strong. I do find that it gets better as the film goes along, but I'm never really lost. This is computer sharks.
Yes.
And if that's
Yeah.
going to bother you, it's really going to bother you. in
Yeah.
This movie. It's not quite to the low level of like the sci-fi productions where they seem like barely trying.
Right.
But
Right.
they're trying in this, but because it was, originally going to be in 3D and because some of the, I think, scares that they're setting up are just on their face implausible.
Oh, yeah.
You have to accept that you might as well be watching a cartoon.
It's true. Even the cover kind of looks like a cartoon.
It does. In a way, almost like, why not? With the animation to the level that it is nowadays,
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't make more animated movies aimed at adults. Because as far as your budget of your movie, I mean,
Yeah.
an animated movie is an animated movie. Whether you're drawing goldfish or vast landscapes, in theory, it's going to cost you the same thing.
It's true. And certainly hasn't Comedy Network and Adult Swim and such proven that there's a market for it.
Yeah.
There's people who will seek that out. So
And certainly this movie's full of enough archetypes that they could be, exaggerated cartoon characters. We have this fairly unpleasant couple trapped in the underground parkade. This sort of rich hoity-toity Paris Hilton-ish girl
Yes.
with her little yappy dog.
so vapid.
And
Yeah.
the sort of jock, dumb as shit boyfriend who, wants some sex from her, but that's about it.
And more concerned with saving her dog than realizing the danger of the
Yes,
situation or fully appreciating it. Yeah.
Definitely seems to go an awful long time not being fazed by the severity of their situation.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, there are types. There are several characters that I would refer to as the Coopers in this. There's that are just counterproductive.
Yeah.
The one bank robber who's sort of hidden amongst the survivors continues to be an evil shit despite of the situation. The cheap sort of conniving store manager continues to be the cheap conniving store manager despite how crazy the situation is.
Straits couldn't be more dire.
Yeah.
And yet, they can't break from type.
And there's some sort of just blandly heroic people too. The one actor I recognized from Nip Tuck.
Yeah, that was kind of a surprise for me in this one because he just doesn't seem to fit in. And in the sense that I go, why does he go to his agent and say, this is the movie? This is the next one I want to do after.
Well, I wonder
because
if
Nip Tuck was a very successful series,
It
right?
was, and he is an Australian actor. I think maybe
It's true,
he
so
wanted
maybe he
to
had
make
some
a movie at home.
And fair enough, like. But that's exactly what I mean. That there had to be some connection to this above and beyond the script.
Just wowed him.
Yes, exactly.
I have to play this part.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one has ever played a criminal who got forced into something over his head and has to redeem himself. That's never happened in
I
movies.
can play this like no one has played it before. Yeah.
Now, I don't know a lot about tsunamis, so I'm going to have to claim ignorance on this. I do understand the principle that it basically forces a bunch of water up onto the land, and there are aftershocks, much like with the tidal waves, so you will get hit repeatedly with...
Right. Or earthquakes have aftershocks, yeah.
Several waves will continue to come for a time afterwards, and that's what everyone seems to be fearing. What I don't understand is how the main floor of the grocery store is like flooded over most people's head. They're standing on the aisles, jumping from aisle to aisle to avoid the great white shark. And yet in the floor below them, the parking lot, it's only partially flooded as well. I'm not an engineering person. I don't understand the layout necessarily. But to me, it seems like if the grocery store is going to be that flooded, that the floor directly below it would have to be completely submerged.
Are you saying there's a hole?
I'm thinking that
in
maybe
this?
that
There is.
Could the parking not been next door instead of right beneath them? I'm not really sure.
That's very true. Like, why did you even have to place it there in the first place? If you knew that they were both going to be partially flooded structures.
Yeah. I didn't quite understand it. And maybe that they're buildings that are made on the coastline have some sort of design to try and keep the water out of them.
Yeah.
Maybe there is something, and I, like I say, don't know about it. But it was something I found myself wondering in between shark attacks.
Gave you time to think about the plausibility of it to begin with. No, it's very true.
And on with like the sort of bland archetypes. There's of course a broken love story here.
Right.
At the very beginning of the movie, a very unconvincing shark attack claims the brother of our female lead, and it sort of breaks the relationship that she had. And we've caught up a year later, and she's got a new boyfriend who is, like I said, blandly good as well. And we have a fairly dramatic sequence where this new boyfriend sacrifices himself for the good of the group. And you can feel the movie really trying to make a really big moment out of this.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty easy one for me as far as people gasping for air and trying, to get his face above water. It's sort of like a horrible concept. But it did sort of seem an odd scene out in the midst of this movie. And that character just seemed like he had to die in order for the story to go full circle so that this couple can be reunited.
It's like they wanted everything in this movie. Hey? Redemption, and chaos. And
there might have been a few too many storylines to go. Like we were joking before, they should have thrown in a psychic at the end.
Just to round it out. Because you've come this far, right? Yeah.
The movie is dumb, and the movie knows it's dumb, but while it's dumb, it plays itself straight. So this is sort of the quintessential B movie, and as it ages, I think that those special effects are going to look worse and worse, and that may add or
don't they always?
That may add or detract from the charm as time goes on. But it's hard to get really passionate when having a discussion about bait. I mean, if you want to see another shark attack movie, this is definitely one of them.
And that's just it. I mean, I'm struggling a bit only because I watched it so long ago to remember the specifics of the film.
Right.
But that's what comes to mind. B shark movie.
Yeah.
Like it all kind of glazes over, and it's all in the same sort of area, and
there is a sense of been there, done that to it. And really, in its own way, it's as good a shark attack movie as a lot of others. I mean, there's many
in
worse.
This category.
There's many worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're to compare this with, because that's just it. I mean, these are all shark movies, but they're very different in their approach. And there's some definite B film category type ones tied up, I think, with some higher quality ones. So should we put this against purely other B films? I think it would probably be on the stronger side of it. So,
but I could not be as scared in this movie as I was in, like you say, The Reef or Open Water, because it was silly.
Like I still jump at the end because I mean the point of most of these shark attacks is that it, to come out of nowhere or to be really big and over the top and that sort of thing. And so, again, it still did that for me.
And when I say it's silly, I mean that's totally fine. Be a silly movie. Just know that you're a silly movie, and we'll meet on the same terms.
Don't try and be something you're not.
Anything else you want to say about bait?
Oh, I do. One thing we discussed earlier that I thought was quite funny, fun fact about bait.
Fun fact.
The Paris Hilton type gal has a chihuahua named Bully, and they used 3 different chihuahuas for the movie. Right. One for swimming, one for barking, and one for running. So, of course, we had a good laugh about how you need 3 separate dogs to achieve those very important shots in the film.
Yeah, they're obviously taking the dog's performance very seriously.
Indeed.
But I still think that the movie's about sharks, and there was not one shark on set, clearly. You're going to have 3 chihuahuas, have at least one shark, damn it.
It's true.
And here's a little spoiler for bait, too. There's a scene where we're led to believe that the dog has been eaten. Yeah. And I think we're supposed to be happy when we find out it's not. I don't know. In this case, even though I know it's a cliche, the dog always dies in horror movies. Mm-hmm. I say give the shark a snack.
Just a little something.
Good enough?
Yeah.
Come on in the water! We'll get now.
So we're going to wrap up the reviews with, of course, the granddaddy of all shark movies, Jaws.
Dun, 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 dun.
Directed by this fellow named Steven Spielberg, who I think is going to go on to do good things. I have a good feeling about this guy.
I do, yeah.
The tricky thing about doing a review of Jaws is, like, what can you possibly say new about it? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, this is an incredibly famous movie, and it's one of those, like, almost everybody who's even a little bit into movies will eventually get around to seeing Jaws. It's just going to happen. And with good cause.
Yeah.
Spoilers for the rank and review check. Jaws is number 1 with a bullet on my list of shark movies.
High five.
High five.
Right there.
Yes.
That's the first match. Yeah.
So I'm putting my cards right on the table. I do consider Jaws to be something of a masterpiece.
Yes.
I do think I consider it a monster movie in a lot of ways, if you substitute the shark with the monster. But it's also an adventure story. It's also sort of, you know, it's mainly about Chief Brody sort of coming to terms with his fear and doing battle with for somebody who's scared of the ocean and water would be their ultimate enemy, a giant great white shark. Of course, the story is just to get it out. Chief Brody moves his family to a small island community of Amity to get away from the big shitty and all of the crime and the horrible stuff that he had to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And he figures working in this small coastal town is going to be probably boring for him, but better for his family. But shortly after he arrives, it's his first summer, as he is being reminded again and again, people start going missing on the beach. And it becomes very clear that they have a shark problem. He teams up with Richard Dreyfuss, who's a professional scientist studying sharks, and eventually they hook up with Robert Shaw, an ex-military fellow who has a very personal grudge against them. And the movie's very split. The first half's sort of like an investigation, almost half character study of Brody, half sort of procedural of the investigation in the community. And then about the halfway point, it becomes a hero's journey, a quest.
Yeah.
The 3 men get on a boat and they set out to solve this problem. Charlene, what did you think of Jaws?
That's a big question. Well, I think that, I mean, since we've already said it, it's number 1. I mean, that's for many reasons for me. I mean, that's the first shark movie that I saw. It is the reason why I have an irrational fear of them, you know, and it still holds up. Even though, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about actual shark footage and how effective that is.
Right.
And really, if you're going for the legitimate scares, that's what you should be using. CGI is more B-movie-ish, or at least that's what I see when I look at it. And here you have a mechanical prop shark.
Of course, there was no CGI when this was made.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Yeah.
They didn't have that option. They did incorporate a small amount of actual shark footage.
Absolutely.
So they did have that available. They did use it. But I'm just saying in terms of... you know, when it came out, it was very effective. It was in 1975, right? But here we are reviewing it, you know, over 30 years later.
Absolutely.
and the shark doesn't stand up to these days. I mean, it doesn't. We can say that. But it still stands up in lots of other ways. And I think that's because, you know, Spielberg, he has very strong storytelling skills. And you still root for these people all these years later to... you know, to make it through, to not be eaten by this shark that seems to have some sort of vendetta for them, right?
There you were talking about this shark being mechanical, and it's a very storied thing that the shark wouldn't work. And that it sort of forced Spielberg into a Hitchcockian corner where he had to not show the shark as much as they'd originally planned. And as a result, made a much scarier movie.
Yes.
But I don't think I'm going to 100% jump on the bandwagon that mechanical shark sucks. I would say that there's 2 shots in the movie where, it doesn't look fantastic. But I heard this argument, I wish I could remember who said it, somewhere on the internet. I heard someone defending the effects in Jaws saying, tell me of a shark movie that does it better.
Right.
And even with some of the really good CG that we've seen, like, they are getting better at it. I'm never fooled by CG. There is something about it being concrete and there. And I do think that this movie still has some of the best shark attacks ever. There's a scene where a gentleman is trying to swim to his capsized boat, and we see the shark just gliding under the water, just under the surface of the water, and nipping him. And that is utterly horrifying.
Yeah.
The, of course, completely, famous opening sequence where the woman goes skinny dipping, and we don't see the shark at all.
No.
Horrifying.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because your imagination does all the work and what's going on under the surface. Interesting
to note, too, apparently, I'm told in the new transfer that you can get in high definition and Blu-ray, it's all of a sudden a fairly graphic scene as far as the nudity. She was, of course, naked when they shot the scene, but it was sort of silhouetted in the earlier prints.
Yeah.
And in these cleaned-up versions, this movie starts with some full-frontal lady.
It's really interesting, too, because I think I read an article saying that, she was a stunt woman.
Yeah.
And that was partially because of the ropes they had tied to her underneath to simulate the shark attack. But there was also something about her being okay being nude.
Right.
And so, yeah, maybe they always intended down the road that this was going to, be a little bit more revealing.
Well, it's funny because we were talking about the nudity at the beginning of Open Water, and Carrie has established that. I don't think this was meant to be like nudity. I think they were actually, believe it or not, trying to sustain a PG rating to this movie. Although I would not show this movie to kids.
No.
At all.
That was exactly the wrong thing that happened to me. Seeing it too young.
Well, the movie came out actually a year before I did, before I was born.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it at a very young age in small town Alberta and being horrified walking home. Of what? I don't know, that a shark was going to fall out of the sky or jump out of a lawn and eat me, but it affected me. And I think the reason it affected me is that might be the first time I ever saw a kid get killed in a movie. And not just a kid, but a little boy. And not just a little boy, but a little boy my age.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
Like, they'll often have the kid in peril where it looks like something bad's going to happen to him.
And then they get saved.
Yeah. Not so with the Kintner boy.
No.
Not so at all.
And he goes in quite a brutal fashion.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of thrashing, a lot of blood, a lot of screaming of people coming out of the water. It's not like... he's swimming and quietly goes under and never comes up again.
Yeah. Of course, a big part of the success of Jaws 2, I think, is the very simple and sinister John Williams score and the underwater POV shots, which, of course, we've seen a million times now, but I think was less familiar when Jaws was out. Sort of looking from the bottom up at all these bathers' legs in the water, the sort of little forest.
How vulnerable you are.
It's like a forest of legs.
Exactly, like choice pickings.
Just pick your favorite and have a nibble, know. Incredible stuff. And of course the cast. I think that the three leads, Roy Scheider, probably his most famous role, was a really great actor.
Yes.
Robert Shaw, in spite of being drunk off his ass,
still
gives an amazing performance.
Yeah.
Call it method if you must, but it's an amazing. I was
going to say the drunk works for him in this character. Yeah.
And I think that this role from Richard Dreyfuss is sort of what sort of established Richard Dreyfuss as the likable, fun guy character. You kind of get the feeling like Richard Dreyfuss in real life is maybe a lot more serious than the Richard Dreyfuss you see in movies.
Yeah.
But this sort of super fun character that actually does bring a good energy to the movie. He's a very welcome presence when he shows up because everybody's so serious. And this guy sort of shows up, clearly the odd man out on this island. He's 5'0" and smarter by a yard than anybody around him, and knowing it, right?
It's true. And it's really funny because he's very eager to get in there. He's very knowledgeable. He's willing to put himself in dangerous positions. And yet, in watching the movie again, I'm he gets grossed out when he's examining the remains of Chrissy.
Yeah.
He has a hard time looking at what's left of her. And when he opens the gut of the tiger shark, when they think they've caught the shark that's responsible, and he opens the gut to see that there's any body parts in there to make sure they do have the right shark. And he's totally grossed out by the whole thing. So I love that there's that...
I love the shark autopsy
juxtaposition.
Not just because both of the guys have to get drunk to do the deed and cut open the shark, but because they're both preparing themselves I think they kind of know this isn't the shark, but they both have to prepare themselves for the fact that they could cut this shark open and pull pieces of a little boy out of it.
Yeah.
And it's not shown anything really. I mean, we see what he's pulling out of the stomach as it's coming out, but we don't, it's not as graphic as it could be.
Yeah.
A lot of this movie is restraint, actually. The Kintner boy attack, like, to describe it, it's really brutal, but we see some bubbles, we see some red in the water, we see a fin sort of flap over in the surf.
Yeah.
But we fill in all the blanks ourselves.
You don't see the jaws. Yeah. Well, and in talking about that, where the line was, I was watching some of the deleted scenes from the film, and you mentioned the fisherman trying to get to his capsized boat.
Correct.
And also in the water, who's been knocked out of the boat, is Chief Brody's son, Michael.
Yeah.
Right, so Michael's also in the water, and so they had done a scene where the shark grabs the man and pushes him towards Michael, and he picks up Michael and carries him in the water for some time.
And throws him to safety or something like that.
Well, the scene didn't show him actually throwing him to safety, although that would make sense.
Yeah.
But it just showed him kind of the shark finally taking him under the water and sort of finishing him off. And Michael, already being traumatized, is further traumatized by taking this ride, but they decided that was too far. And in watching the scene, there is no blood. There's no, But I think that idea of that child being in that situation was just...
I do think it was righteously cut in a lot of ways. I think that, maybe they're trying to explain the kid's trauma a little bit more, but I think if you had front row seats seeing somebody get eaten by a great white shark, like a few feet in front of you, while you yourself were in the water... Yeah, no, I believe that kid being catatonic.
Absolutely.
They didn't need to bump it up that other notch.
No. No.
But, it is. I've seen some of that footage on the special features, and it is kind of interesting that they did go there. And that didn't seem to be in the possession of a PG movie at all either. But neither does a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think one of my very favorite scenes in this movie, and consequently one of my very favorite scenes in movies, is the scene on Robert Shaw's boat where they have the conversation. It starts out about being comparing scars and very macho.
And they're finally starting to connect.
They finally are getting along.
Yeah, because there's been some tension and friction there,
They compare scars, they sing a little sea shanty, and we hear the story of the Indianapolis, as told by Robert Shaw. Apparently this was a late addition to the screenplay too. They kind of added this in. They wrenched it in a little bit late. It's an amazing scene. It's as good as anything that comes before it. It's almost like a little mini movie in of itself, because you can watch that scene isolated as sort of just a masterclass in both acting and sort of covering a good scene like that.
Yes, he paints a very vivid picture.
And we go from being sort of exasperated and annoyed by Robert Shaw's character to going, okay, that's why. That said, he is the quote-unquote Cooper figure of the group in that he does do things that are counterproductive.
Yeah.
He destroys the radio, their contact to the outside world. He runs the boat until the engines fail. He is consistently making the wrong decision, but always falling back on he's the captain and it's his boat. There's no more conversation.
It's very true. Yeah. And the USS Indianapolis is one of the worst shark stories out there.
Someday they're going to make a horrifying movie about that.
Absolutely. Because even the other horrors of the sea, exposure, dehydration, and then you come to drink the salt water, which causes you to go crazy. And so there were a bunch of things that happened with USS. So I won't, go too much on a tangent. But it's, that's an incredible shark story. And just while we're on that topic, this is also loosely based on, so there's a book by Peter Benchley called Jaws, and that's what this is based on. And that book is loosely based on actual attacks that happened on the Jersey Shore in 1916 between July 1st and July 12th, and 4 people were killed and 1 injured.
Yeah.
So,
and again, that is a horrifying true story that I think someday will probably deserve treatment in a film. There were some significant changes from Benchley's book too. The dispatchment of the shark, spoilers, is very different. And a lot of people are just, there's an air tank in the shark's mouth, and it's dragging it through the water for some reason, and like, what happened? At this point, the movie has been so awesome for so long, and you've been with Brody, and that boat is sinking, and you want that fucking fish to blow up.
You want him awesome. To smile, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's fine. And in the book, it's a little less glorious. Quint gets tangled up in the line and dragged into the water and drowned. And the shark is being towed by the boat, and it gets drowned in the shallows. Is certainly a less sexy cinematic ending. Also, in the book, the Richard Dreyfuss character does not survive the cage. So a lot of people who had read the book, it was a genuine surprise to see Richard Dreyfuss surface at the end, and a very welcome one, because the idea of Chief Brody having to dog paddle all the way back to shore by himself was really horrifying.
It's so true. Yeah.
I just can't say enough good things about Jaws. If you haven't seen Jaws, what are you doing with your life?
It's true.
If you're
it's
a fan
really
of horror movies, even a little bit, if you're a fan of movies, even a little bit, clearly Jaws needs to find its way
into your movie watching schedule. Yeah, and I want to go back on it just because it's again, one of the reasons it's my top is the storytelling, and one of my favorite moments is Chief Brody sitting at the table after supper. His wife is in the kitchen doing dishes, what have you. His son's there, and he's just kind of thinking over all this stuff's happening and what is he going to do about it. And then we notice that his son is copying his moves, and then he notices it and he starts to play with his son, and there's this really lovely moment between the two of them, really connecting and then when we talked about before, that's the moment where you're like, oh God, save him.
Yeah, we love
and his whole family.
We love Brody.
Yes.
We love Brody. Yes.
Exactly. But I can't think of a similar moment like that in the other 5 that we've reviewed that has that kind of level of heart and.
Of course, Jaws being the mega blockbuster that it was, people argue it gave birth to the summer blockbuster movie season. It did, of course, spawn many sequels and many not very good sequels. But don't let that spoil the meal for you. Jaws is absolutely fantastic. That's where I end up on it.
Yeah, I concur. 2 thumbs up.
Chuckworld, Charlene Roche. This is 6 shark movies have been reviewed, so it's now your time to shine. We're gonna rank these 6 shark movies. Thank you so much for doing this. See, it wasn't so bad, was it?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I'm excited. Please tell me, what was your least favorite of these 6 movies and why?
I had a little bit of problems with my bottom 3 because, your personal criteria on how you rank this. But in the end, I went with Dark Tide. And, Dark Tide has, really good... The shark attacks are really liked in it. It's really beautiful to watch a lot of the scenes and what have you. But I think that you did make a very valid point. I mean, this could be a half-hour movie that you watch. Just watch the beginning, watch the end. The middle is a lot of blah blah blah. I'm angsty. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't, kind of thing. And it's so that's a major dip. So that's why I decided to make Dark Tide at the end there.
All right.
In 5th place, I put Bait. I think it's pretty clear so far in the podcast that I definitely tend towards the more realistic shark attacks in my preference, and so that's why Bait's towards the bottom. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that one. The one after that, then, of course, is Shark Night. And the reason why I put Shark Night in 4th and Bait in 5th is because I gave Shark Night kudos for the variety of sharks it used. Kudos for using a cookie-cutter shark attack.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Look those up on the internet.
Yeah. And tell me that would not suck.
Oh my God, it'd be terrible. It would be terrible. But the mention of Shark Week and, you know, and all these variety of sharks and the fact that they're not really making entirely stupid moves. They are just trying to get out of it, is why it ended up in 4th for me. Okay, so down to the top 3. So in 3, I put Open Water. And 2 and 3 were very close for me. I think that they're very similar in their method of storytelling and, you know, that situation of being in the water and what do you deal with sharks. And they're both very effective. Yeah. I recommend watching both of them. I think why I put the Reef in 2nd and Open Water in 3rd is because of the shark attacks in the Reef. I found them more terrifying than the shark attacks in Open Water. And those moments when they were able to get to little islands and reefs and moments of respite and this, you know, moment of safety just to be back in the water again and the dolphin and the fake outs and that sort of thing. I mean, so that's why I ended up putting that one in 2nd, is just because it was a little bit more scary. And their attacks, oh God, they come out of nowhere and they're swift and violent and then it's calm and silent. Yeah. And, anyway. And of course, as we said, Jaws. Jaws has to be number 1. Even all these years later with all these modern shark attack stories, it's still superior.
I'm thinking that, like, with the forward leaps in special effects, that people are going to get better and better at making convincing sharks in movies. That said, I will be very surprised, even if they make the Indianapolis movie or if they make the movie about those Jersey Shore shark attacks. I would be very surprised if I ever saw a better quote-unquote shark movie in my life than Jaws. So yeah, I agree with you. Chuck, we're so close. We're so close. My heart is breaking.
Are we off by like 1?
We're off by 1. We're off by 1.
Is it, okay, let me guess. Is it Shark Night and Bait? Or the Reef and Open Water? Or is it...
That's actually several guesses.
I know! But I mean, like, is it these ones reversed? Because I feel like that's where we would have been close. Is the Reef and Open Water.
Well, I'll go through it, but it was the Reef and Open Water is what I got in first. But yes, I agree with it. Dark Tide is the least of these movies. I think you could cut a decent short film out of this feature film, but yeah, I think that the performances, particularly by Halle Berry, are a little indulgent. And I don't know, I just never imagined being as bored as I was during a shark movie. So yeah, Dark Tide, not high praise. Beautiful scenery. If you get the chance to go to Cape Town, South Africa, I encourage you to do so. Yes, number 5 is Bait. It's dumb as a bag of hammers, and the special effects are not that convincing, especially in the first few minutes. You should not open out of the gate with special effects that bad, because the rest of the movie is not as bad as it suggests. If you like shark movies, which Chuck and I do, you know, you're going to have a good time watching Bait, but you're going to have to apologize to your brain. And the same will be said for my next selection, which is Shark Night. But like Charlene said, it's got a much richer variety of shark. I like the characters. I didn't find them doing anything incredibly stupid as far as the plot goes. And the movie moved, you know. It moved fast enough that hopefully you didn't have time to think about how dumb it was. And it's fun enough. As you know, the top 3 of these movies are all much more seriously toned. I put The Reef at number 3. Again, it's very similar, you're right, to Open Water in that they're both essentially survival stories. The sharks maybe take more of a back seat in Open Water, but there's something about that, the way the camera's right down in their faces in the water, and that the horrifying perspective of it. I feel like Open Water felt more real to me. The Reef is clearly, they're both clearly movies. The Reef has moments where it feels like a movie, whereas Open Water almost feels like it's found footage, but they haven't bothered to explain why there's another camera there, you know? It's got a weird documentary quality to it. It's a pretty disturbing movie. And like I said, I saw it in the height of summer, and I came out of the movie theater chilled. So The Reef and Open Water would be 3 and 2 respectively, leaving Jaws to top off the bunch, and I think we've talked fairly thoroughly about Jaws. I don't know what more I can possibly say other than it's probably one of the main reasons that I'm into horror movies as a genre, because as much as I was horrified, genuinely horrified, like stomach ache inducing horrified by the movie, I was also fascinated by it. And that opened doors to a lot of other things. Probably no Jaws, no podcast.
That's a big one.
Just saying.
That's a big one.
Number one, Jaws.
And you just tied that up quite nicely about the sharks in general, about being fascinated and
oh yes,
terrified by them by the same time.
We have a rich history of watching Shark Week and documentaries of that, and I'm sure that it shall go on for many years to come. No matter how many times I'm told that sharks are misunderstood, don't call them shark attacks, call them shark accidents. Somewhere deep down in me, I believe those sharks are monsters. They want to eat me. I believe there's a big fish swimming around in the ocean somewhere that knows it's got a meal coming to it. And someday, some innocent gesture, someone's going to push me off a dock just for a laugh. And there that fish will be waiting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing my podcast.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Yay. You'll be back.
You betcha.
You'll be back. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings to a close episode 20 of Rank and Review. And in finishing the 20th episode, I have now reviewed 120 films for this podcast. That's kind of a big milestone for me, and I just wanted to put a big thanks out to all the people listening. If you're now wondering, how can I help Rank and Review, which I assume you are, you can do that by liking us on Facebook, posting positive reviews of the podcast on your blog or on iTunes, and just spreading the word with your friends. I would also love to hear feedback from any people listening. You can write me at ranknreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. This is your host and random Canadian, Larry Parsons. 20 episodes, kids. Thank you so much for listening.